Oh, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and today I want to pose a question out there. And the question is, what happened to crop circles? For years and years, they'd have those calendars, which they probably still do, and people would be talking about. There'd be a lot of articles on the internet, et cetera, right? Not much anymore, right? It's crazy. What's going on here? So first of all, I just want to tell you that the thumbnail is of a crop circle, one of my favorites. That it was actually taken in 2010 in England, and I believe it's from Avery Hill. Okay, it's really a cool one, pretty amazing in many ways. So I have a good friend that lives in New Mexico, where I've lived for many years, and he had a group of dowsers. He was a dowser, and he had a group of dowsers, and he I brought him in to do a little talk about crop circles, and he was really into crop circles, and he did what he likes to call his super crop circle show. So I'm going to quote some of the stuff from that show that Gary gave. So Gary had traveled in the past to England, and he said there was nothing like sitting in the middle of a new crop circle and taking it all in and taking in all the powerful energy. And many of the circles had what he called the watchful eye look, always checking the visitors out. Okay. And like Gary wanted to make sure everybody understand, this was the crop circle perspective from his viewpoint. Many other people have many other ideas about crop circles, but this was his perspective. And because he's a dowser, and dowsers have a whole other way of feeling powerful energy that really comes through from these beautiful images. Gary said on a typical year, and I checked some of these numbers out, seems to be correct, there are approximately 100 crop circles, plus or minus, of course, around the world. And he said 60% of them are in southern England. The other 40% are the around the rest of the world. He said a lot of those are concentrated, of those 40% are concentrated in uh, Germany and Italy for some reason. Nobody knows really why. He said what was interesting, sometimes there's no crop circles in the United States, even though there's plenty of crops that could be made into crop circles, right? And according to Gary, and he says that one of the reasons maybe the U.S. doesn't, because there's a lot of dark and dangerous energy here, and the makers just don't even want to deal with that type of energy. So, and that could be true. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So, so many feel that there is a group of dimensional beings called the Archerians, and they are responsible for these particular circles, which they consider uh, right brain learning tools. Okay, so one look at a circle, and you are learning a lot of stuff through your right brain. And I have had that experience. Okay, I would look at a crop circle. When I first saw a crop circle, I couldn't believe it. It was like you just looked at the circle. It's mainly I've never been in England, or I've never saw one in person, but I've seen plenty of them on the internet or on TV, right? So if you just look at them, they just give you a whole bunch of information at one glance. Okay. So over the years, the crop circle themes they vary from year to year, as you probably know. But there is three, and Gary said this basically, there's three dominating themes. One of them is the all-seeing eye. Okay. Number two is a look into the new world or look into the future. And number three is the multi-dimensional worlds, the 3D worlds. One year, first recorded image, one of the first recorded images was that of the Star Wars Galactic Federation symbol. Now, that was the first one of the year. Now, when they say the first one, as you probably know, the crops have to mature to a certain age, and then seem to be big enough for create a crop circle, right? So there's always a first one in the year, and most of those happen in southern England. Okay. Then in this particular year, which Gary brought this up, the same thing, symbol appeared on the very last crop circle of the season, which is pretty crazy. Now, Gary didn't say he thought that the first and the last one happened to be made by somebody. He thought they were pretty, he seemed to imply that they were the real McCoy. Okay. So Gary now uses the term, instead of crop circle, he uses the term crop image because there are only a few true crop circles in the images nowadays. So he is saying that recent years there's probably a lot more man-made ones than there are the original ones, or the ones made by the unknown, as we'll call it. Okay. So dowsers and others who visited these crop images have made some interesting observation. One, that they felt that the crop image is actually a life form in itself. The image of the crop watches its visitors and records their life force, which is a really interesting concept. These images are the works, of course, I said, of the Arcturians, dimensional gateways. So they're saying that these are Arcturian dimensional gateways for our future wisdom and human growth. So I think that's really pretty cool. And one of the final things Gary said is that crop images may be the smoking guns that the world agrees to ignore every year, but maybe they are only for a few who can handle their truths, or at the very least, and I added this, very least have open minds. Okay? So, two more things. Well, let me just back up a minute. First of all, let's talk about Dave and Doug. I'm not even going to really talk about them. They're kind of the original hoaxsters that in 1990s, I think it was the late 1990s. Um, these guys went out and they hoaxed these. There was a bunch of crop circles, and then they came forward and they admitted that they had done them. Actually, interesting to find out that they actually had done or hoaxed over 200 crop circles over their lifetime. Okay. And most of theirs was very simple. They weren't the fancy ones, but they were very simple. So we know there's the hoaxers out there. College students have colleges have actually gone one on one against other colleges when it came to crop circles, and they went ahead and they have contests. So they can make some very sophisticated ones, even though they take quite a few days, several days to make some of these most sophisticated ones, and keep that in mind. But always remember, crop circles have been around since the 19, I'm sorry, since the 1660s, or the 1600s, I guess is. I know there's like several very famous ones from about 1660, but it's actually been the 1600s. And many of those have been written about, many of them have been drawn. There's some of them in pictures, wood cuttings of crop circles. So it's been going on for a very, very long time. But here's the interesting thing: many things, especially nowadays, fade from humans. Interest fades very quickly, especially if there is people that are putting articles out, trying to debunk it constantly, trying to put out fake information, fake news about crop circles, and they're really taking all the oxygen out of the room. And basically, I that's one of the reasons I believe the crop circles have just kind of faded away, even though they're still happening. People have lost, I guess, an interest, and there's been these people kind of debunking them constantly with probably fake news for the most part. So, two more things I think you will find interesting. Number one, I once had a phone call. This goes back a few years, from a friend of mine who was a pilot in England. Okay, and he would fly around. He's just a weekend flyer basically. But he said he had taken a few pictures of crop circles. He wasn't a professional at the photography, but he did observe, and if he saw one, which he only, I think he said about 3 times he saw him, he took pictures of him. So, anyways, what happened one time, he was flying and he flew over this field, and then for some reason he had to go back. I forget what he told me, why he had to turn around and go back, but he flew back over the same field. And what he saw was amazing. And it was about a 10-minute fly. So he flew over the field, turned around, came back, and a period of 10 minutes had passed. When he came back over the same field, there it was, this magnificent crop circle. He said he could not believe it. And to this day, he still doesn't know who did it, but he knows it wasn't, it wasn't uh, it wasn't anybody like a bunch of kids or Dave and Doug at all. It was impossible. He'd said that that size of a crop circle he felt would have taken many, many hours or even a few days to do with a group of skilled crop circle makers, as he called them, crop circle makers. So there you go on that. But last but not least, you should go if you want to learn something about crop circles, go and ask King Charles. Okay? He will tell you some of the crop circles are definitely being made by the unknown. And he would probably tell you directly it's aliens. It's some group of aliens that are doing this. Okay? Because as you probably know, King Charles is big into paranormal, big into aliens. He's big into crop circles. So here's where, and with that said, here's where I bring in another old friend of mine, old English friend of mine. The man actually had coined the phrase crop circle. This guy has actually coined the phrase crop circle, the original guy, right? He once told me that he met King Charles and Lady Di and toured them, or actually just toured Charles of the newly formed crop circle. Okay? Charles told Colin, my friend, our government has great interest in these circles. So I would guess, this is me talking now. So I would guess they were well beyond the Doug and Dave phase of the research into the matter. Okay? So as I famously say, sleep tight. Mysteries of life go on, and crop circles are very cool. So there you go. You have a great night, great day, great night, whatever. So we'll see you. Bye bye.